So I'd like you to meet Mary. Mary's 45 years old. She's married. She has 2 children. She owns a home. Mary's at work right now. Mary has intrusive images that come into her mind of her house burning down. These are very graphic images. They're very realistic. And when they happen, they create a surge of anxiety for Mary. Specifically, underneath this fear is Mary worries about light bulbs in her house. She worries that somehow she's going to leave a light on in the house. It's going to get really hot. It might overheat. And in some way, it might shatter and create a fire. When Mary leaves for work, she locks the front door. She goes out to her car. And when she gets in her car, she's like, ooh, I just want to check. I just want to check one more time. So she goes, unlocks the door. She goes back in the house. She checks every single light bulb in the house. She then locks the door again. She goes back out to her car, and she thinks to herself, there was this one light. Looked a little weird. I just really want to go back and check. So she goes back and she checks that light and every other light again. Mary doesn't just check once. She doesn't just check twice. She checks for 45 minutes, sometimes 60 minutes, sometimes much longer. And this is an exhausting process. And it's crushing. It can be crushing for her. Oftentimes, one of the things we like to think about is, what is checking? Well, why does she check? Well, she checks because, let's be honest, she wants some reassurance that the lights are not on and that I'm not going to burn the house down. And what's underneath that need for reassurance is a need for certainty. I want to be certain that a light is not on and I'm not going to burn the house down. And the 0.0001% chance that might happen is too much to bear. It needs to be 0%. And in a way, that's asking something of life that life cannot give to us. It's just certainty. We can think about it in a different way, too. In a sense, it's also avoidance. It's also saying, I don't want to actually test out whether or not my fears will come true. You might ask Mary and say, hey, Mary, what are the chances that you're going to leave a light on and the house might burn down? And she might say to you, 25%, 30%. Maybe sometimes even 40%. That's how certain she is that this fear is going to come true. So it's an avoidance of, I don't actually want to kind of test out and see if that's true. I don't really want to roll the dice. One of the problems with OCD, which makes it such a cruel disorder for people to have, is science is pretty clear that the more people check or seek that reassurance, 2 things happen. The more their anxiety grows, and the more intrusive those images for Mary of her house burning down become, and the more uncontrollable they become. What's really needed here, if you think about it, is I can't talk Mary out of her fear. Probably not. I can't convince her that, hey, just leave a light on, it'll be all right. She knows that. She knows the actual risk of burning the house down. What I can do, though, is offer her an opportunity to confront her fear, to purposely not avoid. And for Mary, that might look like purposely leaving a light on, going out the front door, locking it, getting in her car, and driving perhaps to the end of the block, and just sitting there. And sitting there until her anxiety, which, by the way, is going to be pretty extreme, waiting until that anxiety goes down. That might take 5 minutes. That might take 2 hours. That's what I can offer her, is an opportunity to roll the dice, to see if that fear comes true. And that's going to be a profoundly difficult thing for Mary. Oftentimes with OCD treatment, we find a couple things. Number one is we find if Mary can do that, she learns a couple things. One thing she learned is, actually my fears didn't come true. Actually, I was wrong. There isn't a 25% chance of burning the house down. I don't know what I was thinking. And she also she might learn another thing is, I actually can handle it. I can handle just checking once and leaving. I don't know if you're like me. I am really good at avoiding things. I have a PhD in avoidance, let me tell you. That awkward phone call I have to make, that I think is going to be so awkward and difficult, I put it off. Starting that paper, I think it's going to be so awful and difficult, and I avoid it. Perhaps even positive things. Perhaps we even avoid telling people something really positive, like how much they matter to us, the kind of impact they've had on our lives, how much we love them. And we think it's going to be kind of awkward and anxious. I avoid everything. I don't know about you. Just like Mary, the more I avoid these everyday things that I have in my life, the more my anxiety grows about them, and sometimes the more intrusive they kind of become in my mind. And just like Mary, though, if and when I actually do these things, I learn a couple things. One thing I learn is, actually, I had convinced myself back then that it was going to be awful, that it was going to be awkward, that it was going to be anxiety-provoking, and it actually wasn't as bad as I thought. And we also might learn another thing is, actually I can handle confronting these things and not avoiding them. So I come with one simple lesson. The more we avoid our anxieties in our everyday life, the more our anxiety grows, and we can convince ourselves of things that are simply not true. Thank you.